Hi, everyone. It's Colleen Meyer, and we are going to have an amazing conversation today. I want to introduce the two wonderful ladies. First, we have Kristen Carder. She is the host of the #1 podcast, I Have ADHD. She's a certified life coach and coaches people with ADHD. She also offers courses to people with ADHD, and you can find her at ihaveadhd.com. And I'll put that information in the comments in a little bit. And then we have the host, LaFaya Mitchell. LaFaya is a licensed marriage and family therapist. LaFaya is also an author of the LaFaya Way series, and LaFaya specializes with helping parents with kids, teens, and adults on the spectrum. And you can find her at lafayaway.com. I'm Colleen Meyer. I'm the moderator. I'll be popping in and out. If you have any questions, please put the questions in the comment section. Okay, LaFaya, it's all yours.
All right. Now, one quick and small correction is I work with parents of children who are hypersensitive. So that includes autism spectrum, ADHD, reactive attachment disorders, and so on. So just that small correction because it's hypersensitivity. All right. But anyway, I'm excited today to get a chance to get to know Kristen a little better. I am so impressed with the things that I've seen. You have a most fantastic and wonderful website. You guys make sure that you check it out. But I guess my first question for you today would be, okay, so first of all, where are you joining us from?
Well, thank you. You're so kind. It's so good to be here. I'm pumped to chat with you and get to know you a little bit. I am joining from Pennsylvania, about an hour outside of Philadelphia. So I'm an East Coast girl, and I love it here. It's great. It's finally summer, and the sun is shining. The birds are chirping. I'm ready to roll.
Yes, we love summertime. But we also now, what else do we love, everybody? We love great information, right? And that's what we're going to get from Miss Kristen today. She has she's doing wonderful things for people out there with ADHD. And I want to ask you now, like, how did you get started? How did you get started doing what you do?
Whew, that's such a great question. It comes with a long answer. I will give you the cliff notes. So I was working with students with ADHD, and at the same time learning about ADHD for myself and feeling like, wow, there's very little out there for adults with ADHD. So I was working with students, and so I knew about all of the resources for students, right? And I was kind of like pairing parents up with resources and also coaching executive function for students. And I went looking for resources for myself. I went looking for resources for my clients' parents. You know, the parents would come in, and as you know, it's hereditary. And so they would say, like, okay, like, we're taking care of my kid, but what about me? And so when I went looking for resources, there were very few that I found that I really resonated with, connected with, absolutely loved. I kept looking for a podcast that I could just be like, this is the podcast, like, this is the one that I love. And there are some really great ADHD podcasts out there, but none that I felt like connected with me personally. And so finally I was like, I think I'm going to need to do it. I think I'm going to need to do it myself. And so I started the podcast, started coaching pretty soon after that. People started reaching out for coaching. And since I was doing it with students, I was like, I could probably just transfer what I'm doing with students to working with adults. Fast forward, I've been certified as a coach. I adore working with adults. It's the best thing ever. And I just get to every day help people just like me. So it's really, really fun, really rewarding.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so it is so rare that you hear people say, I just adore working with adults. Now, most will hear that all day long about the kids. Like, even some will say, oh, I love, like people think I'm strange because I'm like, I love working with teenagers. They're like my favorites, right? And they're like, what? How is that, right? And I've heard it about preschoolers and, children before, but I feel like I rarely hear people say that they love working with, even though it is quite a wonderful thing to get a chance to be a resource like you are to adults, you're feeling in a need that is, they're not, people aren't out there meeting. So I love to hear that. So we definitely have to chat a little bit more, so I can talk to you a little bit about why it is that I do what I do, because I'm in the same place. Like, I researched everywhere, and there didn't seem to be, the right fit. The techniques didn't really work for the population that I wanted to work with, that kind of thing. But actually, really, really, really cool. Now, I know that in some of my research, I learned that you teach how to access motivation needed to get the results that you really want. And I wanted to ask the question, okay, what's your secret? What's your strategy, your magic formula, whatever we call it?
Okay, so here's the secret. What I teach is that motivation is actually pretty irrelevant when it comes to reaching our goals. And so the motivation that I help my clients access is a willingness to move forward, a willingness to feel their feelings, a willingness to do it wrong, a willingness to try and fail and try and fail and try and fail until they get the result that they want. So it's really the motivation that I help people access is actually just a willingness to bring in other emotions. So we really work on bringing in emotions like willingness, like I mentioned, but also determination. So like, okay, maybe you're not motivated, but could you be determined? Or desire. Maybe you're not motivated or inspired, but do you have a desire for the outcome? Do you have a desire to get the end prize, the end goal? So really, it's about accessing these different things that are available to all of us that really we just haven't been taught how to access. So for my whole life, I told myself, gosh, like I'd be so successful if I was just motivated. I could accomplish so much if I was just motivated. And, all of us know that motivation, it comes and goes. It ebbs and flows. It's fleeting. It doesn't stay forever. So when it leaves, like when it's there, great, take advantage of it. It's amazing. When it leaves, how about we bring in some commitment? How about we bring in some determination? How about we bring in some willingness, desire, and all of those things to get us to the goal?
Man, okay, so that sounds a lot to me like, just becoming more intentional. So it's not about like you said, it's not about the feeling, because, if it were about the feeling, we might never really feel motivated, right, to do certain things.
Right.
But is that a correct, way of thinking about it?
Becoming intentional, but really it's becoming the kind of person who's gonna get it done. Okay, so like we identify as always late. We identify as distracted. Sure. We identify as procrastinators. Okay. Can you be a procrastinator, but also someone who's going to get it done? So it's like shifting. It's an identity shift, which is why I always say, like, I am not the coach who's going to give the tips and tricks, the 5 ways to like hack your productivity. Like, I am the coach that's going to help you shift your identity into someone completely different. Because if I can shift my identity into someone completely different, then I can do anything. I can be a procrastinator and someone who gets it done.
So now would that include some things like, maybe even some languaging changes where you can say, I'm a procrastinator, but I'm going to get this done.
Yeah.
Is that so bad about it?
Yeah. Like asking the question, like, what's so bad about being late? Like, yeah, I'm late. What's so bad about being inconsistent? Who cares? I'm persistent. I'm going to get it done. Of course I'm inconsistent. I have ADHD. I'm being inconsistent. So like normally in our culture, in the ADHD community, it's like, gotta be consistent. We just like, what are the tips? What are the ways that we can just be consistent? And for me, I'm just like, just throw it in the trash can. You don't need it. You need to be persistent. You need to have a willingness to fail and not quit.
I love that. I love that. So now this is a new quote, right? Our tweetable quote of the day is I don't need to be consistent because I'm persistent.
Yes. All day.
I love that.
Every day. And every ADHDer, and you work with younger people, and so like you'll observe there's no consistency. Their productivity ebbs and flows, the mood ebbs and flows, the ability to just show up and like be a fully formed human like ebbs and flows. Like, yeah, me too. Some days I just stare at the wall. I don't do anything, like, but I know that my productivity is going to come back around. And when it comes, like, you better watch out because I'm going to get so much done. Right. So I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I'm just like, yeah, today, like my brain's not available.
That's fantastic. There's a real acceptance in there. And that's I love to hear if anybody talk about become accepting of who you are. So then that way, who you are is not kind of made up into this bad thing. Is right? Because we talk about these things, I lack motivation, or I'm, people even get into, well, I'm just lazy, or I'm this, or I'm that. And they kind of frame themselves up in this way where they are something, as opposed to recognizing I am most fantastic. This is an area that sometimes tries to get in the way and keep me from doing certain things, but I'm not going to allow it to. It's just an area, right? So that is so wonderful. We don't hear enough of that acceptance piece. We hear more about, well, how do we increase the motivation and how do we, right? And so that's fantastic. So tell me, how did you become so passionate about this? Like, what was it like for you growing up? And when were you diagnosed? Things like that.
Yeah, I'm passionate about it because I've lived it. I lived the story that I didn't enjoy. I lived a story that I didn't enjoy, right? So I didn't get diagnosed until I was 20, 21. I was always that smart girl that just couldn't get it together. I heard from everybody, parents, teachers, like, you're so smart. If you could just apply yourself, you could really go somewhere. And, when you say that to a perfectionist, it's like, oh, and the words like self-discipline, if you just had some self-discipline, if you could just be consistent. And so I am the type of person, and I think a lot of ADHDers are, I like to go against the grain. I like to be a little bit defiant. I like to kind of reject the norms. I think that's one of the things that, can be a benefit of having this type of brain. It can also be to our detriment, but that's okay. We won't talk about that. So I just really started to think through, like, wait a second, why do we have to frame everything in this way? What if we framed it? It was basically just like, what if we just tweaked it? Let me just look at it like this. And I noticed, because here's what happens to someone with ADHD, especially like an adult with ADHD. Once they realize that they are inconsistent, let's say, like once I've like, oh my gosh, I'm procrastinating, then I start beating myself up. So not only am I procrastinating, but now I'm heaping on judgment, shame, self-loathing, and now it's just a spiral. Now I'm spiraling. So instead of just, oh, I'm procrastinating, let me shift into a different task, it's, oh, I'm procrastinating, let me just spiral out and not do anything for the next 3 days because I'm feeling so much shame. And so what I do with myself and my clients is we notice the procrastination, and then it's like, okay, what if it's not a problem? What if we're just like, okay, like, yeah, I have ADHD. Let's just make that shift. The jump then from procrastinating to not procrastinating, it's a much smaller leap.
Now it's interesting you brought that up, that kind of that way that we spiral and we start to get into that self-blame. I actually have a little portion that I speak to that I call BS, called the blaming snowball. Right? And it's that BS that gets in the way of your actually moving into the behaviors that you want, right? And so it's so interesting to hear, you refer to it that way, because it's exciting, because I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, so I know that people are in great hands, when they're meeting with you, when they're learning from you, they're learning exactly what they need in order to move forward confidently, because now they get to be who they are.
Yes.
As opposed to being called upon to be someone else, right? This is so important to teach, whether it be our children or our teens or our adults, okay? That it's okay. It's completely and totally okay for you to be who you are and be the best you, not someone else. Don't compare yourself, right? Because you said that some of the traits, can be really for like a superpower, was what I use, and some and in a way to your detriment, but you're not going to speak to that. But doesn't that happen with every trait?
Yes.
Right?
100%.
So for those out there who they may lack the creativity that an ADHDer may have. They may, they lack the ability to persist in the same way, right? With the same energy level. Yeah. So there's a lot of things. There's good and bad. I always say this, there's good and bad with everything. So let's not make a way that you are all bad ever, right?
I love that. And I love that you are getting your hands, so to speak, your hands on people at such a young age, because if I had heard that as a teen, like the way that you are is fine. Like it's actually perfect. It's exactly the way that you were created to be. And you got this brain for a reason, and it's not an accident. And we're going to help you shift, and we're going to give you some tools, and it's not like, okay, just stay there, but it's like, you're great just the way you are. You're 100% lovable. You're 100% worthy. You're 100% capable. Now let's like make some shifts. But I think that most of us as adults, if we haven't worked with you or someone like you, it's like, we get here and we're like, in order to be successful, I have to be someone else. I have to become someone that I'm not. And that feels daunting. That feels so hard.
It's actually impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have the ability to be someone else. And if people can grab a hold of that particular concept and say, okay, well, I'm me and all of my, for me, all of my quirks, all of my, fidgetiness and, awkwardness, right? I'm all of me. And here's the thing. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. But if I love it, then it's going to stay lovely every day. So all I have to do is say, okay, I'm accepting of this. And if someone has takes issue with something that comes from me, it was never about me in the first place. It's every issue that a person has is always about them. Okay. So most of the time you'll find the most judgment coming from people who are not able to be themselves. So then when there's another person trying to be who they are, then the person who is not able to be themselves will fault them for trying to be who they are. Okay.
Gosh, I just am still learning this part. I'm still learning all of it, but really the piece where I show up fully, authentically myself, and then just allow the world to interact with that however they may. And some are going to love it and some are going to hate it. It's very interesting to be a human in the age of social media and in the age of like direct access and in the age of like podcast reviews and that kind of thing. It's like, I'm still learning. And I think what I'm learning is how to take care of myself when there is someone that interacts with me in a way that where they're like, like, I don't like it, or I don't like you, or you said this thing, or you did this thing. And learning how to take care of myself in that. And that's a gift that I want to also give my kids and my clients, is that ability to self-soothe and take care of ourselves when the world shows up, in our face and is like, no, you're not good.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So now, we all, if you're out there and you're trying to put yourself out there, you're sharing information because you want to change lives, then most of the time that also comes along with a tender heart and concerns about what other people think, and what they have to say. Now, I want to just share this little piece, and then I'll, ask you more questions, of course.
Tell me all the things.
Every single day, you look at yourself in the mirror and you tell yourself, I am beautifully and wonderfully, and I love magnificently and magnificently made, right? And so, and if you want to add the extra, that's enough right there. But if you want to add any extra on it when you need it, anyone who takes issue with the beauty that is me, it is their own issue, not mine. Okay. So, and just get into the habit, and I'll follow you because this is advice is to me as well. Make sure that you're sharing that gift with yourself and with those whom you work with, because it's important for them to really see themselves as they truly are. Because that's the issue, is we go to a place and space of discomfort when we forget who we are. But if we understand we were made to be exactly us, and there is no other person that can be who we are perfectly, then it makes everything okay.
So I have a question for you. How do you help someone shift into that belief, that full belief, when they've been told for years that the way that they are is not acceptable?
Oh man, recording. See, okay, if you've been hearing and I'm old, so I say the old tapes playing, right? Old tapes. Tapes. You probably don't even know what a tape is.
I'm 40 years old. I am a grown woman, and I know what tape players are.
Okay. Well, you look young, man.
You
go. Okay, you. Anyway, no.
You're 40.
You're 40?
40. I'm a full grown up, a whole grown human.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, my bad. Okay. So
wait, am I older than you?
Oh no. But we don't want to talk about my age.
No fair. Continue.
No, I just thought you were a kid. But anyway, no. I guess I should have got anyway, it doesn't matter.
I love it.
No. But it's really when you've been told that your whole life, and think about how thoughts work. Okay. Think about the fact that all thoughts are words that's looking around in your head over and over again. And if you've been told a certain thing, it's gone into your ear hole, into your brain space, right? So now it's a part of that rotation in your head. If you want to work towards getting rid of thoughts that you don't like, then you start working on replacing them, and you become very intentional, diligently so, to that. So to do that. So what do? You put things in your ear hole that are telling you giving you a different message.
Wow.
This can either be through words out of your own mouth, which is why I said I am beautifully, wonderfully, and magnificently made, right? Because we get to hear it's direct, right? But then also from outside of yourself. And if it's not coming from other people that you're around, first of all, find new people to get around people. But secondly, we can listen to things like affirmations, where we're listening to the repetition of I am wonderful, I am beautiful, I am perfect as I am, I am acceptable, those kind of things. And when you introduce that into your mind, then what happens is it records over. So you remember the old tape players with the record and play button then, record, and where if you had something on that tape, if you go rewind it to the beginning of that tape, you push record and play, then you're recording over it. That's how it works in the mind with affirmations. So doing things like that and not dismissing those things to be like I did. I thought flighty and cheesy, and all that. But find the value. The value is that you want to introduce something different into your mind so that you have a different rotation of thoughts. Now, if you've had years of, hate to call it abusive language, but people are unintentionally abusive. Like it's not like they set out to be hurtful, but they just lack the skills to build up. I'll say it that way. But if you've had years of that, then just know that you'll need to spend a lot more time. It won't be automatic, but what you'll find is little bits at a time. You'll just feel a little better about yourself. Your thoughts will start to change just a little bit more. You'll have thoughts to battle the negative thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause at first it won't be that the rotation, it'll go away completely. Sometimes it'll be that it'll get joined in by the other. So then at least you have something going on where it's like, you know, I suck, I am great. You know, that's so going on.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a really important way. But I always encourage people to, if you don't have a great support system around you, find your great support system. And trust me, when you become intentional about being good to yourself, then you will not even allow other people who are going to say negative things to you around you.
Totally agree. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, I am. This is such exciting conversation, I have to say. So so I know you mentioned a little bit about, you know, being undiagnosed at the younger age made it actually a little bit more difficult for you. What were some of the challenges, some of the other challenges that you encountered as far as, like, you know, your family? Did you have siblings as well?
I'm the oldest of 2 sisters. I'm the oldest of 3 sisters. What I meant to say was I have 2 sisters. So I'm the oldest of 3 girls. And my family is so fascinating. I'm actually in therapy right now, figuring it all out. So I come from a dad who's diagnosed with ADHD. He got diagnosed when he was like 45. And then when he got diagnosed, he was like, Kristen, I really think you have ADHD. And so then I went and got diagnosed. So like, I'm so thankful. He read Dr. Ned Hallowell's book, Driven to Distraction. I'll never forget it. It was the 90s, the late 90s, I guess. And it changed his life. It changed my life. It changed the trajectory of all of our lives. So now both of my sisters are also diagnosed with ADHD. I come from a family who, like, ADHD qualities it was just like the way it was, right? Like, all of us were losing stuff. All of us were late. It was just kind of this, all of us had explosive emotions. It was just a family of ADHDers. And so that was good in some ways because I fit right in. You know, it wasn't like I was the only one in my family who struggled. Like, we all struggled. It was bad in ways that, like, there wasn't like someone who was like, let me make a schedule and help all of you follow it. Let me have one place for all of our keys. And, like, you know, so there wasn't that like one or more people who were like kind of taking charge of our executive function. So the challenges that I faced were very typical. I mean, getting, like, my grades were extremely inconsistent. So I would get like A's or D's, right? Like, not much middle ground. I would excel for the first half of the semester and then totally lose all momentum in the second half. I would get very easily overwhelmed. And overwhelm was something that my family just kind of accepted as fact, which I now know doesn't necessarily need to happen. So, like, yeah, overwhelm is a thing and we can still move through it and we can, like, get stuff done and we don't have to shut down. So those are things that I've learned as an adult. You know, I just remember a lot of instances of forgetting appointments, or like telling someone I'd babysit for them when I was in high school and then totally forgetting, like, stuff like that. That was difficult. It's hard as a person with ADHD to be a really good friend to a neurotypical person who doesn't understand your brain. So, like, they have expectations that I will just never be able to live up to. Yes. So that kind of made friendship dynamics hard. So I would make up for it by just being really charming. And, you know, the trauma response, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, I was very good at fawning. Like, I would just kind of like smooth over the waters and people please and, you know, charm people with my gregarious personality. And that would often make up for things. But I felt as though, now looking back, there was always this like penalty that I was paying, right? This like ADHD penalty. So like, I'm a mess, I'm irresponsible, I'm unreliable, so I have to be like the best friend or the funniest person or the fixer, you know? Just to like a whole bunch of stuff, you know? So now as I move into acceptance and I say, yeah, like I am distracted sometimes and I can be flaky sometimes and I am hyperactive. Like I'm not inattentive. I'm hyperactive. So I can get like, but I don't have to make up for it.
Yes.
This is who I am.
Yes. Now, oh, did you have a question for us, Colleen?
No, I'm just letting you know, Lafayette, we're at our 30 minutes. So I'll let you decide what you want to do from here.
Okay, thank you. See, that's my timekeeper. I'm enjoying the conversation too much. But, okay, so now I just want to say, and I just want to share just one piece, because as you spoke to kind of your childhood and then moving towards acceptance, I just want to share one little piece that I know out there will be helpful to you, fellow ADHDers. One piece is, there's this piece that I call grieving the idealized you, or grieving the idealized child, or grieving who you think you should be, right? Grieving the idealized person, right? And I heard you actually go through the process of, this is who I am, and I'm actually trying to actively be someone else. So during that time, it's like you almost can't grieve the idealized self because you're actually living in the idealized self, right? So then your next stage you moved into, okay, so now I have to become accepting of who I am and not try to make up for who I am, because I think that I'm supposed to be something that I'm not. When you get there, then there's a process that you have to go through, that, and some of it might be the same things that you go through with your regular grieving process, which is there's that DABDA acronym, that is denial. At first you're in denial. Nope, there's I got this, there's nothing, there's nothing wrong here, right? And then there's anger, right? There's anger towards it. Like, why am I like this? Anger towards self, anger towards others. Why don't they understand me? This is ridiculous. Almost anger at God, or, whoever, higher power. Like, why'd you make me like this, right? Bargaining. If I could just be this way, then, then I would give my left arm, whatever, right? And then, no, I'm sorry, I started out, denial, sorry. Then depression sometimes will set in, where we just kind of, you vacillate through them. It's not just all in order. And then you get to acceptance. And when I got to acceptance, when it comes to relationship, and that's relationship with others or self, when it comes to relationship, I talked about how you have to break down the acceptance into different pieces. So first, it's just the slight acceptance of self. So now I need to be me, but you don't quite know how to get there. It takes a lot of personal growth and all that to get to the next step, which is, like partial acceptance. And then it really does, because it takes such a long time, and people, it's important to recognize how vitally it becomes like necessary to enter into personal growth work, where you are learning who you are in the fullness of what that means, and the magnificence in what that means, so that you can enter into full acceptance. But grieving the idealized self.
That was a really huge eye opener for me. I really appreciate you sharing that with me, because I notice, because I feel like I'm on the other side of that. I'm in the acceptance mode, but walking my clients through it, I notice this, but I've never been able, I've never had a context for it. So you just gave language to a process that I feel like I'll have a tool and an ability to help them to see, there is actual grief that you go through. Yeah. They joined my program, and a lot of them start out like, here we go. I'm going to change everything. And it's then it kind of as you can imagine, right? There's this drop off of And it is that intense emotion. And it's that grieving. It's that grieving piece of like, in order to get to my highest self, I have to walk this journey of acknowledging who I am and kind of shifting that, saying goodbye to that. And that's painful.
Yeah. And also if you can just if it can be related to, there is a literal death of something. Okay. So there is this idealized self that I now have to put to rest. And whenever we put anything to rest that's near and dear or close to us, right, then it's going to be a painful process.
So what I think, like an objection to that, so I want your thoughts on this. My clients would be like, my old self is not near and dear to me. I don't even like them.
Right. Now, you can have a father or a mother that you don't like very much, but they're still near and dear to you.
So
you may
it's
not
more of like an attachment.
And you may not feel endearing towards them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yes, it's, your word is better. Attachment. We're attached to, so people can have the most unhealthy of relationships. They could be being abused by another person, and they will still mourn the loss of that relationship.
Gosh, wow. Human brain, it's so fascinating.
Yes.
It's so fascinating because, and I think that we want to simplify it. We want to be like, as soon as I start to make progress, I'll be so excited and happy, and I'll just the momentum will just start going, blah, blah, blah. But it's like we start to make progress, and then there's that grief piece. That's a really important piece. I just really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, if people are able to identify it, it's awareness that empowers us. Then they can say, oh yes, this is, instead of kind of giving up or shutting down, now it becomes, oh yeah, this is just a part of the grieving process. When we can logically work our way through certain very painful emotional things, it helps us out immensely. Now, I have to say, Kristen, that I have to continue conversations with you just because I feel like we're super simpatico anyway. And you are most excellent. I love this conversation. But I'm going to, because we probably lost some anyway, because short attention spans. I'm going to go ahead and bid you adieu today and say goodbye to everyone out there. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much, Kristen. I hope that we get a chance to speak many more times. And we're going to go ahead and shut down this portion of our broadcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.